Cool. Thanks, Elisa. And I just started sharing my screen, so you should see the slideshow now. And I also just started recording the session. So we are now recording. So thank you all for being here. Again, we are going to be talking about preparing for comps and candidacy today, going over that process and what it looks like. So we'll just hop right in. I can figure out how to, there we go. So some things we'll cover today. We will talk about the timeline for navigating both the comps and the candidacy process. So kind of what you should be looking at in terms of the timing for each of those processes. We'll also talk about the necessary steps for completing your comps and candidacy. And we will identify some resources that are available to you as students for support with that process. The first of those resources, obviously, is us in this office, Student Services. So please reach out to myself, to Elisa, as you have questions about this process. Our contact information will be available at the end of this presentation, but we are the first resource you have. So glad to see you all here taking advantage of that. We also want to give a little note about the PhD versus the EDD. So the journey to your exam and what exactly it looks like will differ a little bit, both within the same program, but also between programs. So we just want to make note of that as we go into this. We'll talk about a lot of things that are very general, but we'll also at many points talk about you need to reach out and talk to your advisor, to your program about what is specifically needed for you. Another thing we want to make sure to mention is that the requirements for the degree differs, but it does lead to the same outcome. So you'll get your doctorate degree at the end of it, even though the process may look a little different for all of you. And we also want to make sure you're aware of language and how it's utilized and interpreted at the graduate school level. So what some of these words and terms mean have very specific meanings to them. So what candidacy versus post-candidacy versus your professional exam, those all have very specific meanings. So we'll go over all of those here today. So we'll start by talking about your professional exams and the checklist of things to think about with that. So this checklist, things you should be thinking about as you're preparing for your exams. Have you met with your faculty advisor to review all the degree requirements? So your credit hours, your courses that you need to take, any other like internship requirements or anything, just making sure that you talk with your faculty advisor and have checked all those boxes to make sure you're actually ready for your exam. You'll also need to submit your PhD degree plan and your annual review to the Office of Student Services, so to us, our office. If you're an EDD, your EDD degree plan needs to be submitted along with your annual review, again, to our office. You'll need to make sure that you are registered for a minimum of 3 graduate level hours during the semester you will be taking your candidacy exam. So the caveat we want to make sure you understand is if your exam is going to last for longer than 1 semester. So if it bleeds into, let's say you start in the spring semester, but it goes into the summer term, you would need to be registered for credit hours during both the spring and the summer term. And as Elisa mentioned in the chat, that's any part, whether it's your written or oral exam, you will have to be registered for 3 credit hours during that period of time. We also want to make a note that if you you may need to be registered for more hours depending on other things, like if you are a graduate research associate or graduate teaching associate, or if you have student loans, there may be requirements for some other things beyond the exams that require you to have a certain number of hours. So you also need to be mindful of that and any of those requirements. You'll need to make sure you've paid any fees that are on your student account. You need to have at least a 3.0 GPA, which is required by the graduate school. You need to go online to grad forms to submit your application for candidacy, or if you're a PhD, or if you're an EDD, your application for the professional exam. Timing wise, and we'll go over this more in the timeline of the exams, but you'll need to make sure that your advisor and the grad studies committee approve your application for candidacy or for the professional exam at least 2 weeks prior to your oral exam. Okay, keep moving along with the checklist. You'll need to make sure that your advisor has approved that application for your candidacy or for the professional exam. And you will have to have satisfactorily completed the candidacy professional exam, and your committee has to submit the results of the exam in grad forms. And again, we'll go over this in a little more detail as we go through the process. But it is important to note that you have the ability to log into grad forms to check the status of your applications. And we'll have some screenshots of what that looks like to kind of provide you some examples as we move along. So here's the first. So in grad forms, this is where you would be going into the graduation exam forms there. And then as you can see, you'll have different forms that you can create in there. And the one we're talking about right now is that application for candidacy exam. So you'd go in there to create your application. And then these are some of the terms you'll see and things that will indicate kind of where your application is in the process. So you can see here what it means when a application is pending. And yes, I see a question that, will this be available? Yes, we'll make all this available, and I'll send an email with this presentation attached for you to be able to reference after the session. Yeah, you can see everything that could be next to your application, what it means, whether it was in pending status, pending for meaning that there's still things for you or your advisor to do, or pending meaning it's at the grad school level. When it's approved, if it's been denied, anything like that, you can see that for all your forms. And then this is what you'll see when you create that application for the candidacy exam, some things you'll fill out, and we'll go over some of the things in here and why it's important for you to know some things, like where your exam is going to, where your oral exam is going to be located, the time and date and location of that, the time frame of your exam, and all those kinds of things. You need to know all that prior to completing this. And so just wanted to point that out on this screen, but we'll go for that in a little more detail as we keep moving. You'll put in your advisor, your committee members in this section here. And that's what you'll do there. And then your report on candidacy will auto-generate in grad forms once your exam starts. And your committee members will then go into grad forms, and you can see they will submit their results there, and you can actually see what that looks like and whether or not they've approved your exam. So now to get more into the timeline of the exams. Again, students have to be in good academic standing, and they have to be registered for at least those 3 credit hours each semester of any part of the candidacy or professional exam. So you'll need to make sure that's true. Once you have completed your written exam, you have 30 days to complete your oral exam. So you finish that written exam, that 30-day clock begins, and you will have that amount of time to complete that oral exam. And you must have your application for candidacy or application for professional exam in grad forms at least 2 weeks before your oral exam date. So what your committee will look like, your advisor will obviously be on the committee. Some things to know about your advisor: that person must be a Category P faculty member for PhD students. For EDD students, it can be a Category M or a Category P faculty member. In grad forms, when you go to put in your advisor, it actually says what category they are, so it won't let you make the mistake of putting in the wrong kind of faculty member there. You'll see what kind of faculty member their category in there. So you should know that. Even that should be good beforehand. That's just kind of the last step to make sure it's correct as you're going in and putting that in grad forms. And you can see here some of the things that make someone a Category P faculty member. We don't need to go over all that, but just we like to include that in here so that you understand what that looks like. They also must be a faculty member in your home department, which is educational studies. That is the grad school requirement. At the ed studies level, at our department level, we do require that your advisor be from your program. So if you are counselor education, your advisor must be counselor education faculty. That is a department requirement. For the rest of your committee members, PhD students, you must have 4 members on your exam committee, and that includes your advisor. So your advisor plus 3 others. You can have more if you choose, and some folks do choose, but you don't need to. That is the minimum that is required. EDD students, you must have 3 members of your committee, including your advisor. So your advisor plus 2 others. And your committee members, they may be assigned, or you may have the ability to choose who those folks are. Committee members have to have more than a 50% teaching faculty load in their contract, and they can have M or P status. So for PhD folks, only your advisor has to have P status. Other members of your committee can have M or P status. You can have external members on your committee in addition to the 4 members. So they can't be one of those 4, but if you want someone external, you know, maybe someone who you worked really closely with, who would have some great insight, who would bring some great expertise to your committee, that's great. You can have those folks. They just have to be in addition to that minimum required number. And when you get these slides, if you go back, you can even see where you can put in their information in grad forms. So you can see what that looks like if you go back through the slides after this. Some more about your committee members. We'll talk a little bit about graduate faculty representatives. You can ask for a grad faculty representative or a GFR to be present for your exams. These are faculty members who are assigned by the graduate school. You will have one for sure in your final dissertation defense. It's not as common or needed in the exam stage unless you fail your first exam. So if you fail your first attempt at the candidacy exam and you're given a second attempt to complete it, you will be assigned a GFR to that second exam. Graduate faculty representatives, they participate fully in the exam process if they're assigned to you, including reading your dissertation before your exam, and they make an independent assessment of your competence and vote. They have a vote on if you pass or fail, just like anyone else on your committee. They're there to make sure that grad school rules are followed and that everything is fair and being administered fairly. And if there are any concerns that arise during the exam, they can halt the exam to make sure that that can be resolved. So things to do to prepare for your oral exam. You'll want to connect with your advisor. Again, that's a theme here. Make sure you are always connected with your advisor so that everything is looking good. Again, as we said earlier, it's really important to know that no exams are the same. They can look very different. Even within the same program, exams can and often do look different. So you just want to make sure that you're connected with your advisor so that you know exactly what to expect going into yours. It's important that students can produce rigorous academic byproduct. That's what we're really looking for in that oral exam process. It can include a lot of things, set of journal articles, portfolio, the first 3 chapters of your dissertation, answering questions. Those are just some examples of what it can look like. But again, you'll just want to make sure that with your advisor, you have an understanding of what exactly you need to have prepared for yours. You'll also want to make sure that you have an understanding with your advisor on timeline of when your written portion should begin and what that looks like as well. A newer development. So you need to decide if your exam will be in person or online. The new development is pre-COVID, you had to petition to have your exam online. That is no longer necessary. You don't have to do an extra step or a petition to do it virtually. If you do it virtually, you'll need to provide like the Zoom link or whatever you're using for that virtual exam. If you're doing it in person, you must have a room reserved and have that information available once you are filling out your in grad forms, your application for candidacy exam. And again, if you go back through the slides, you can see exactly where you put that in. And you'll have to identify who your full committee will be. It is important to note that your committee can look different from the exam to your final defense. So that putting that committee together for your exam doesn't commit that to be the same committee for your defense later. As Elisa mentioned in the chat, if your exam is hybrid, you also don't need to petition for that. And the grad school will make sure that everyone can see and hear each other. They do need to be able to see that is the case in order for that to be a valid option, that hybrid option to be valid. So that's what the graduate school is looking for in those applications is, will everyone who's participating be able to hear and see each other well? That's the point of putting all that information in there into that application. the results of your exam. So an important thing to note is that your committee must unanimously approve your exam in order for it to be a successful exam. So that's why when we say you can have more than the minimum number of members, Lisa raised an eyebrow, because why would you want more people if it has to be unanimous, right? So that just offers more opportunities for someone to not approve that exam. So just know it has to be a unanimous decision in order for you to successfully complete the exam. So the graduate school, on the day of your exam, will automatically generate the report that gets released to your committee in order to submit their decision on whether or not you pass your exam. And they have about 48 hours typically after your exam time to submit that decision. And again, you have access to view their decision there. And then once you pass, you become a candidate the following term. So if you were to pass this semester, this spring semester, you would become a PhD candidate in the summer term. That is for PhD students specifically. EDD students, you don't become a candidate, you just move on to that next step, but you're still an EDD student. That makes sense. Okay, so the sad part, what if a student doesn't pass their exam? If you fail the written portion of the exam and you haven't even gotten to the oral exam part, you can waive that oral portion, because obviously you don't need to do it because you haven't passed the written part yet. So you just need to inform the grad school of that decision to waive the oral portion. You'll need to talk with your advisor to determine if a second attempt is going to be allowed. Technically, the graduate school does not require a second attempt. It can be a one and done. If you do it once and you fail, according to the graduate school, you can be done. But, you know, if you're working with your advisor, something happens, a second attempt can be granted. If you are given a second shot, you have to make a reasonable time frame of when that second exam is going to be held. So it has to be a determined amount of time that is considered reasonable. Now, reasonable isn't very, clearly defined, but it does have to, it can't be years down the road, obviously. It needs to be pretty reasonable and relatively quick. Now, if a student fails at their second attempt at the candidacy exam, they are no longer eligible to move forward in their doctoral program. So you get up to two chances to pass candidacy exams. So that is everything with exams. And now we'll move on and start talking more about candidacy and post-professional exams. So that status is reached after doctoral students have taken enough coursework to become proficient in their field of study. And you can see there, generally 2 to 3 years after starting the program or 1 year after qualifying for preliminary exams. So doctoral students have reached that candidacy status. They are deemed at that point of having acquired all the advanced knowledge for that subject and meeting all the course requirements. They have developed their technical skills that are required to be able to work in whatever their subject area is, and they have demonstrated the ability to do research and scholarship that's necessary to begin their dissertation, or in the case of EDD students, their dissertation in practice. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry if you can hear my phone. I forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb, so my phone started ringing. But yeah. Okay. So for candidacy, an important thing to remember is that while you're a candidate, you must be continuously enrolled in every autumn and spring term of your candidacy. That's only applicable to PhD students, but important to note, autumn and spring term, every term you're a candidate, you have to be enrolled. The only exception is summer. You don't have to be enrolled in summer term unless you are planning to graduate in that summer term. So if you were to, if you're a candidate, you're graduating in summer 23, you do have to be registered in summer 23. Otherwise, you do not. And it's 3 credits that you have to have in order to have full-time status as a candidate. And again, that, like I said, only applies to students who are pursuing their PhD. EDD students who pass the professional exam, they still are adhering to the registration policies for all graduate students because, again, there is no candidacy status for EDD students. Typically, candidates will enroll primarily in that 89.99 or in other program approved courses after their candidacy exam. So that's typically what you'll see is candidates in that 89.99, that 3 credit hours of that every term until they graduate. Also, during this time, must stay in good academic standing, so 3.0 GPA and reasonable progress towards finishing. And you have 5 years to complete your dissertation once you reach candidacy status, or else your candidacy will expire. So it is important to make note of that. If their candidacy does expire, students would be subject to taking a supplemental candidacy exam in order to get back into that candidacy or remain in that candidacy status. At that point, students would only have up to 2 years to complete their dissertation. And if the dissertation is not completed in that agreed upon time frame, the student at that point is no longer eligible to continue in the doctoral program. So dissertation defense. So when we're talking about applying for that graduation and for the final exam, so defending your dissertation, you'll want to complete the application by the 3rd Friday of the semester. So some of you may have noticed in some of our communication lately, newsletters, we've been promoting, apply for graduation if you're planning to graduate in spring, because that deadline was this past Friday, January 27th, the 3rd Friday of the semester. You can see on the screen here some upcoming semesters through spring of 24, what that date is. That's all available on the grad school's website, but we also promote it pretty heavily. So you should know when you'll need to submit that application to graduate. We process those, make sure you look good to go. And then your application for your final examination must be submitted and approved by all committee members on your committee at least 2 weeks prior to the date of your defense. And that's specific to PhD students. So you can also see on here, so for instance, spring 23, we mentioned the January 27th, that's the application to graduate deadline. Then April 14th is the deadline for all examinations and reports to be completed and signed off on. And then the dissertation deadline of when it can be submitted is no later than April 21st. And then you see an end of semester deadline. We'll get to that and what that means a little bit later. So looking at the application for graduation, this is what it would look like whenever you go into grad forms to submit that. So you would choose your graduation level, and you'll see all those there. Then you'd put in your advisor information and your committee members, and you would submit that, and that would be what you would submit for your graduation application. Now for the dissertation defense, end of semester, if you don't finish by those deadlines to get everything submitted, you can change to end of semester, which means you're not completing all the degree requirements in time to graduate in the semester you apply to graduate, but you have until that last business day prior to the next term's classes starting in order to graduate in the following term without having to be registered for any courses or pay any fees or anything like that. So it's a way that the graduate school makes it possible for you to have a little bit extra time to finish everything you need to finish without bleeding over into the next term or semester, and having to still register for classes and all that kind of stuff. But you technically don't graduate until that next semester. So folks who are, applied to graduate spring 23, don't get everything submitted by the deadline and go for end of semester to get everything submitted and their dissertation defended and everything by May 8th, will still graduate, but they will technically be a summer 2023 graduate and not a spring 2023 graduate, and will participate in the summer graduation ceremony and commencement instead of spring, because until everything is approved, technically your diploma and everything can't be awarded, if that makes sense. So to submit the application for the final examination, this is what it looks like in grad forms, what you'll see whenever you go in there. Again, you'll confirm your information, so when and where that examination will take place, your advisor, your faculty members, you'll confirm all that in here. I'll point out a couple things I mentioned earlier. So as you can see next to each of those faculty members, the advisor and the committee, you can see the category that they each are, like I mentioned earlier. You can also see at the bottom of the screen the external members, so anyone who's not graduate faculty committee who you want on your committee, you'll see where you can put that there and add them. So yeah, just wanted to make sure I pointed a couple of those things out. And then the report that gets generated, you can see if you go there up at the top, so by where the exam title is, or the title of the application you submitted, you can see this one is pending. So that means there's still stuff that needs to be done on our end. It's not even at the grad school level yet. If everything was completed, but it was still just pending action by the graduate school, it would have that little GS next to the pending. And so if you wanted to know why, you can click on that history button and it shows you what's still waiting. So one of the committee members for this particular exam still needs to go in and give their endorsement that it was satisfactorily completed. So you can go to that faculty member and nudge them, hey, go finish this, and that way, yeah. So that's how you can navigate the exam in grad forms and what needs to be done. And so once that's done, if it still says pending, like I said, it has that little GS, meaning that everything's been done on your end and on your advisor and committee member end, and it's just waiting for the grad school to give that final approval. And that's done typically when everything is submitted in Ohio Link, your dissertation is submitted in that Ohio Link, where everyone has to submit their final document. So a few things about your dissertation committee. That would have your advisor on it still, just like your exam committee did. Additionally, you would have 2 graduate faculty members. You'll want to check with your advisor because some programs may require more than that. The 2 is what's required by the graduate school, but programs sometimes deviate a little bit. Programs are allowed to require more, they just can't require less. And then any external members. So if you want to have someone else on there, you can do that. You just have to put them in there. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the grad school does assign a graduate faculty rep for every PhD student's final defense. Okay, so that was a lot of talking. At this point, I'll point out a couple of things, and then I'll stop the recording and we can just open it up to any general questions that folks have. But first, I want to thank folks for attending. We do have a really short evaluation for folks to fill out after we're done here. So you can go to this QR code or visit that link. I'll also include it in a follow-up email to this, so you'll be able to fill that out. And like I mentioned earlier, one of the first resources that we have for you to be able to access as you have questions about this process beyond your advisor, but if there's anything else in addition that you would have questions about, feel free to reach out to us. Mine and Elisa's email addresses are available on the screen. And they're also on our website. So feel free to reach out to our office or to just our general edstudies@osu.edu email address, and we can follow up and help you out there. So with that, I will stop the recording.